Hello and welcome back. So this is one of the more recognized ships in the game, and it is currently one of the most flown ships in the game besides the Caracals. And this ship does offer very good performance for its price, and it does offer very good performance for the vast majority of situations that you can find yourself in the game. Now, people like to fly this ship for PvP mostly, but this ship also is very good for missions and for anomalies. Now, the bonuses are decent. This is the fastest tier 5 cruiser in the game, and it indeed is one of the most fun to fly ships in the game. Now, speaking of flying, this ship does look indeed very nice, and I do remember the first design of the Stabber, which is still kind of nostalgic when I think about it, and the other skins for the ship do look very good. Now, these bonuses per level are going to help you a lot when you fly this ship, and especially the rate of fire, since you want to equip autocannons on this ship to maximize the DPS. Of course, you can go with the cannons, or in this game the strike cannons, or in EVE Online the artillery. But this ship is shining the most if you use the autocannons on it. Now, in this video, I'll be testing out the ship with autocannons, but I do also plan to test the ship out with artillery, or in this game, the strike cannons. Since in EVE Online, I was flying the ship mostly with autocannons and it did perform quite well. Now, I am using Mark V autocannons, and of course, I will buy the faction ones very soon. And they do quite decent damage, they have quite decent fall off, and they have quite decent optimal range. Now, speaking of the optimal range, 2.5 kilometers is rather too close if you ask me, and I like to orbit at around 8 kilometers because a lot of the frigates in the game are very small and very fast, and even with these weapons with autocannons, it can be quite tricky to track them when they get too close. So I do usually a 8 kilometer orbit, and I'll show you the situations what happens if the frigates get too close, of course. Now, as for the other modules, I use a Nosferatu, I use a Webifer, and I use a light drone. Of course, you can use a medium drone, they will work better, but currently I still didn't buy one, so I'll be using the light drones. And for the low slots, I use a invulnerability field, a shield booster. Now, since this ship does have only 4 low slots, I will have to choose between the gyro stabilizer and the tracking computer, and I'll try a lot of fits out in this video, and I'll try out different of these setups. Now, for starters, I'll be using the afterburner. Since I do want to use the afterburner on this ship, I can also fit a micro warp drive, but I don't want to increase the signature radius too much, and this ship is already very fast with a afterburner. Now, the gyro will give you a bonus on DPS, on rate of fire and overall damage, and well, a quick demonstration of the current fits, and of course the demonstration of the resistances and on the ship speed. Now, with this current afterburner, with my current skills, I do reach 800 meters per second, which is decent, and with other skills that can also improve up to at least 50%, so I can get around 1.2 kilometers per second speed with the afterburners, and a lot higher speed with the micro warp drive, but the stabber is good to be used with a afterburner. Now, for the resistances, I did put the EM and thermal rigs, since I will use this ship mostly for missions, not for PvP, and it has decent skills. Now, of course, when I have better modules, the resistances are going to increase drastically, but as of the current moment, they aren't that bad. They are actually really decent, and in missions you are going to have no problems with tanking incoming damage, since it will absorb more, it will reduce most incoming damage on the shield, since this ship is after all a shield tank. And I don't know if there is a armor tank stabber in this game. I think you can make it a armor tank if you like, but I do prefer shield tanks on the stabber. Well then, time to test out these different fits in combat. Now I'll be doing missions. Of course, you can do anomalies with this ship quite easily, and compared to the trainer, this ship does have 20% overall better stats, and it is 20% overall better than the trainer, since the trainer cruisers are as the trainer destroyers, 80% of the strength of the original counterparts of these ships. Now I like to do these advanced missions. This is a tier 6 or tier 7 mission. I think it's a tier 6 mission. And this is a tier 5 ship. So I'll be putting this to the test to see how can it perform. Now I usually like to go one tier above the ship's recommendation, and I wasn't quite lucky to get a tier 7 or tier 8 mission. And especially I wasn't lucky to get one of these more difficult missions that do give 1.5 million ISK or more, which I will also try out. And so far, I'll be also showing you a couple of situations what happens if the frigates get too close, since currently, if a frigate gets too close to the ship using autocannons, you aren't going to be able to hit them, and that can cause problems. Now, compared to the lasers and compared to the railguns or hybrids, the turrets are actually very nice. The projectile turrets are actually very nice, and I do like to use them over the lasers, and actually I like to use these over hybrids as well. Now, the superior weapon in PvE and of course in anomalies and missions are definitely going to be missiles. And that is the reason why you are seeing most ships be cavalry ships, because after all they use missiles and missiles can't miss. Now of course missiles do suffer from other difficulties. For example, the signature radius of the ship will affect the missile damage drastically, but in the end the missile will still hit the target and you will still do damage. While for example on the turrets, if you miss, then you will do no damage with your weapon. So missiles are definitely a better choice for missions and anomalies in the game at the moment. Now of course, the projectile turrets have better rate of fire, and overall they are more fun to use because they make the game more action-packed, at least in my case. Since usually when I do these missions with my Caracal or Talvar, I orbit at around 30 kilometers and I just pop the skills and I just wait to kill all of the enemies, and then I jump on the next mission. With this ship, you are going to be orbiting at close range, you are going to have to monitor your shield and of course your speed. You're going to have to take a look and pay attention to the rats, since some of them can also web and disrupt your warp, so you have to make sure that they are your primary target. So for a more active hunting, this is definitely the ship to go, and of course the weapons to go, since the turrets, the projectile turrets are actually, they have a very fast rate of fire, and I can actually increase the rate of fire even more if I put more of these gyro stabilizers, and of course if I have better weapons, and of course if I have better skills. But as of the current moment, everything is going pretty smoothly, and the tank is also doing a pretty good job, actually doing a better job than my Caracal, and that is because of the rigs. I did make this ship a little bit more tanky. Now of course the tankiness can also be improved a lot if I had higher tier modules, so this fit would also work a lot better if I have better higher grade modules, which I'll be getting, and of course I will be testing that out as well. But as of this current moment, I didn't encounter any problems with the ship, capacitor or the DPS. Now, the only thing that I can kind of count as a small problem is when the frigates get too close and when they start orbit you at 1 kilometer, then it might be a problem because this ship and these turrets currently are going to have a hard time tracking them. Now, of course, to counter that, you can also install a tracking computer as a low slot module, and that will help you a lot in these situations. Or if not one, you can install two of them, and then you will have a penalty on having two modules of the same type, but it will still be better than having none of them, and they will help you to track the fast moving targets at close distances. And of course, I will be trying out the other stabbers. The stabber fleet issue is definitely in my aim, since that ship does have, I think, another extra low slot module, and it offers better DPS than this ship, but it costs a lot more, so I'll need time to get the ship. And speaking of getting other ships, I do plan a special event that I'll organize for 1000 subscribers, and I did think about making a fleet with you guys, and we can go in low sec, do PvP or PvE. It depends on what you want, of course, and it would be, I think it's a good idea, but I am also I do want to hear your opinion on this. So I do plan to have a bit of a I do plan to have several events for the 1000 subscriber special, which is slowly coming up, and besides a video, I do want to live stream the game, and of course I do want to make a fleet with you guys. So if you have any idea or any recommendation, or if you have any other idea for this, feel free to tell me in the comments, and I am very curious, and I am absolutely looking forward for your thoughts on this, and of course I'm looking for your own opinions on the events that I do want to make for 1000 subscribers. Well, let's go back to the game and to the ship now. Well, the new wave of enemies did jump in, and here you will see a frigate or two getting too close to me, and of course I am webbed. Thankfully they don't have disruptors. If they had disruptors, I'd be in big trouble, but thankfully they don't. And here in these situations you should always target the small targets first, since if they get too close to your ship, then it might already be too late. If this were a, for example, Inquisitor or Scout anomaly, then I'd be toast, because in the Inquisitors and in the Scout anomalies, they do have disruptors, and if they were to approach me and disrupt me and web me, then I can kiss my ship goodbye and I can already prepare to buy a new one. But it is also good to note that even when webbed, this ship is also still very fast, and I did manage to get out of that situation, and I did want to change my fitting, and now I did fit a capacitor battery. Now, having a capacitor battery is very good if you are fighting these rats at close range, because all of them have energy neutralizers or Nosferatus. So so you want to have a capacitor battery to protect yourself against these energy to protect your capacitor from the neutralizers and of course from the Nosferatus, since if you don't have a capacitor, then you can't warp out, and if you can't warp out, then things might be difficult, and in the extreme situation you might even lose your ship to these rats. But of course that's why capacitor batteries are in the game, and since all of the rats in these anomalies and of course in the missions do carry a Nosferatu or a neutralizer, I would recommend always to carry a capacitor battery, at least for missions. In fleets, you don't have to do that, and of course in PvP, you don't have to do that. But at least for missions, you should, because if you are fighting these rats at a close distance, then you are going to be in the range of their Nosferatus, and you're going to be in the range of their energy neutralizers, and then your capacitor will be running low very fast. So having a capacitor battery is always a very good idea, and I like to use these batteries because I also use a active tank and I have a lot of these modules active. And on top of that, I am in the range of the enemy neutralizers and Nosferatus, so my capacitor is running low very fast. Well, this mission was quite exciting to do. I did have to warp out a single time because I couldn't hit a rat that was too close. And yeah, you guessed it, it was a frigate. And these frigates, yeah, that can be a problem. And for other ships, for example, with the ships that use missiles as their primary weapon, you can focus on any ship in the you can focus on any ship that you can encounter in these anomalies and missions. But if you have turrets, then you need to focus on the smaller targets first, because if they get under your weapons range, then if you can't kill them, then they can kill you. So it is very important to note that. But for missiles don't suffer from that, and even at close distances, missiles will do, and they will hit for a lot of damage. And that makes missiles the current most superior weapon in the game, mostly because of those attributes, and I do use missiles a lot, mostly because of that. Now, like I said before, they do have the drawbacks of having a long cooldown, and they do have a long reload, but they cannot miss and they will always do damage, and when they hit for a lot. For example, my Talvara hits 1.5, almost 2000 alpha per salvo on a cruiser, and yeah, that's a lot. While this ship can do 500, well, I do have almost 200 DPS, and I would have 200 DPS. But I need my capacitor and I need my capacitor battery, since I do shoot these rats at a close distance. But this ship does have a decent speed and it does have a better rate of fire than these missiles, so both of these weapons do have their advantages and disadvantages. But for the fun factor, I'd say that these projectile turrets are absolutely a lot more fun to use than the missiles, since you are actually playing the game more if you use these turrets. With missiles you can even go AFK and just leave everything on autoplay, and when you come back you will see the anomaly or mission cleared. But for these turrets you can also do that, but it is a lot more fun to actively play. And well, I have to say, doing these missions is now a lot more fun than with the Talvar because of the weapons. Now the skills, I am progressing to max out the advanced skills for the turrets, and I do want to max out most of the weapons, since I will use most weapons and I do plan to test out most of the ships in the game. And speaking of other ships, I don't know what the next ship that I'll be playing will be, but there is a high chance that I will settle for a Dramiel, since I think I am going to get one very soon, or maybe a Cinnabal, one of these two, since soon I'll be getting into those ships, and it will be interesting to see how they work. But for now, the tier 1 not the tier 1 ships, the tier 5 ships are doing a very good job, and they're actually very powerful. Now, speaking of the tier 5 ships, I think the Stabber currently is the most efficient PvP tier 5 cruiser, because of its speed and because of its very rapid rate of fire. And I might not I will make a PvP video for this ship, and we'll see how this ship will perform. Will it actually be more efficient than the Talvar? And of course, before that, I will have to increase other skills. I'll have to change my whole fit, and I'll have to buy better modules. Since with these modules, I am absolutely not going to do PvP. These modules that I currently use, the Mark V modules, are decent for missions, for advanced missions and even expert missions. But for PvP, you want to have the best possible equipment, since you have to count that your opponents will also be using top of the line equipment. And to counter that, you also have to use top of the line equipment. And because of that, I'll be using the faction equipment when I do PvP with this ship. In a similar scenario as with the Talvar, since with the Talvar I do have a full faction gear, full faction fit, and it works very well, and I cannot complain about the Talvar's performance in PvP. And of course, I did want to go into nullsec, but in nullsec most of the time most of the systems are already occupied, and if you jump in a system that a corporation is keeping, then you can expect at least 3 or 4 players to start chasing you around. And fighting, for example, for Omen trainers or for Omens with a Talar isn't quite recommended. So I need to get the perfect moment to go into low sec and to catch players there, which I do plan, but currently I wasn't quite lucky with that, since I usually get chased around the system with a full fleet, so that did not end up as I did expect it to end up. But of course, I'll be trying that again very soon. Well then, so far these rats are falling down very quickly. The resistances that I do have are very good, as you can see, and they do protect the capacitor from using the shield booster a lot, and they do protect the ship from taking too much damage. Now, with the current resistances, the best missions to do are Caldari, and I think Caldari and Galanta missions would be the best to do, since the resistances on those damage types are the highest. And as you can see, these missiles barely do any scratch to my shield. Now of course I do turn on the shield booster just to top off the shield, because I am quite used to tap on that module from the Talvar, of course, since the Talvar has 3 times less shield and it takes 3 times more damage. So I am quite used to repair my shield often in the Talvar, so this is just my muscle memory working. But these resistances can also be improved a lot, and theoretically I can get around 80 to 90% with the right equipment, which I'll be also testing out when I get the gear, since currently I was also stuck a lot in warping, since because of some very odd reasons some of the gates in the game did not work properly, so I was kind of stuck in a system for at least 30 minutes per system. It took me around 30 minutes per jump, since I would waste 30 minutes on a gate not being able to jump in. And it's not even the traffic, it's a bug, which was kind of annoying, but thankfully it's kind of gone, so I was able to go and to do these missions. But also beware of these bugs in game, since they can be troublesome, especially in low sec if you get stuck on a gate, or in the worst case scenario if you get stuck in null sec on a gate and if there is a fleet around the corner. That's the worst case scenario, since I couldn't even warp. I was kind of stuck at the gate sitting there, like sitting there, and I wasn't able to do anything, which I hope will be fixed. Okay, I think this is the last cruiser that's left to be destroyed, and as you can see so far, I do have a good time playing this game, and I do have a good time flying this ship. Have to say, it is nostalgic to fly the Stabber again. The first time when I jumped in a Stabber in Evo 9, it was like, I think 2009, that was 11 years ago, and if I remember correctly, back then the model of the Stabber was different. It did look a lot more simple, but I still do remember the design very clearly to this day. And between this and the old design, I think the new one looks kind of more like a proper ship. The old one kind of looked a little bit weird, especially with the spike on the front of the ship. But anyway, I think yeah, it's time to end this video here. I hope you enjoyed. Stay safe, fly safe, and I'll see you next time. Take care.